Welcome to another episode of The Science of Self-Development. My name is Gene Reed, and not only will I be your host today, but I'm also a police officer, father, husband, the author of Police Leadership Redefined, the EQ Advantage, and the founder of Reed Solutions. Now, Reed Solutions is a coaching and training company that I developed, and I have two key areas that I focus on. Number one, I offer one-on-one performance coaching to individuals looking to really elevate themselves. We help identify a vision, make it very clear on a path that they're looking to go, and then give actionable insights on how to get there. The second thing we offer is group training sessions. So if your organization is looking for something a little different, something out of the ordinary on the traditional leadership model that you've seen, that's what we're here for. The areas that we focus on are emotional intelligence for leadership, resilience and stress management, and overall personal growth. So if any of those things sound interesting, I encourage you to visit reedsolutionsllc.com. Now, with that being said, on today's episode, we're going to cover something called the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is something that each and every one of you can relate to. The spotlight effect is nothing more than you knowing that you are the center of your own universe. The problem comes into play when you start thinking that you are the center of everyone else's universe. That's when problems start to come in. Now, this kind of piggybacks a little bit about what we talked about on the last episode, episode 2 on the law of vibration. Now, if you remember, I gave everyone a test. I gave everyone a 30-day test, which I assume some of you are still doing. And the test was, more or less, to treat every human being as if they're the most important human being on earth. And what we talked about was every human being is the most important human being on earth as far as he or she is concerned. Now, whether you get anybody to ever admit that, well, that's another story. But here we have the spotlight effect. And each and every one of you at some point in time has been impacted by this. So again, the spotlight effect is you know that you are the center of your own universe. We all can agree on that. The problem lies when you think that everybody else has you as the center of their universe. So what do I mean by this? Well, let me give you a little bit of an example. And this is often the example that I hear when we talk about the spotlight effect. I'm going to give you a different example that I think really applies to law enforcement and police work and first responders. But the example is usually public speaking. Right? So I'm up here talking to all of you, and I am impacted by this from time to time. I don't necessarily have an issue with public speaking, but what happens when I stumble over my words or something doesn't really come out quite as clear? Well, I'll tell you what I do now. I hit the stop button on record and I start the whole thing over again. But if I'm in front of a group of people doing a live presentation, you can't always do that. You see, where the spotlight effect can get the best of you in those situations is if you're giving a presentation to, let's say, 100 people, and you stumble over your words early in the presentation. The spotlight effect will make you think that everybody's now judging you. Everybody saw and heard that little stumble you had, and now they're judging you for the rest of that presentation. When in reality, sure, a couple people probably heard you slip up on their words or on your words. But also in reality, most people in the audience know that they have done that themselves, slipped up on a word or made a mistake, and it's not the end of the world. People that are really talented with public speaking just roll right through those things. They don't even give it any second thought. But this spotlight effect can really have a negative impact on people, specifically in social situations. And that's actually how this was tested. So in the early 2000s, the spotlight effect was tested, and what they did was they had college students wear an embarrassing t-shirt. That's what the study had. I think actually at the time they had them wearing a large Vanilla Ice t-shirt, and during the 2000s that would have been considered something embarrassing, something awkward for college students to wear. It wasn't really that time for that kind of music. So how did they carry out the study? Well, they had these students put this shirt on, and they walked through a crowded room, had a seat for a while. They kind of lingered in this area. And then afterwards, they asked them, what percentage of people in the room do you think noticed that you were wearing that shirt? What do you think happened? Well, these college kids thought everybody probably noticed, right? Because they're in their own head. This is so embarrassing. Everybody's going to know this is me wearing this shirt. Well, they had it at 50%, right? That's what the study kind of average was. They thought that half the people in the room noticed that they were wearing this shirt. Well, what was the actual number? It was actually closer to 25%. So people are still going to notice, but we have a propensity to double, if not triple, the amount of people who are actually paying attention to us. So you can imagine in social situations, especially if you're uncomfortable doing something. If you're uncomfortable doing something, you might just think, I don't want to look stupid and people are going to judge me for it. Not realizing that everybody at some point has to kind of step outside that comfort zone. And really what will happen is people will actually respect you more for doing that. So we heard the public speaking example. Let me give you another example. And I think this one applies really well to the first responder community. Oftentimes, let's say you're a patrol officer. You'll be engaging a problem. There will be this consistent problem throughout the department, maybe something that everybody always talks about, and you are really impacted by this. And you just assume that people at a command staff level, people above your rank, know that this is a problem, right? And granted, people in your little inner circles will talk about it and you'll discuss it, and everybody knows that this is a problem. But how many people actually go and specifically and clearly articulate that problem to the people at a higher level who maybe could impact some change? You see, what I'm getting at is a lot of times, and I actually wrote this in my book, there's a chapter in there, I don't remember the exact chapter, but don't assume that people know what you're thinking. I got news for you, nobody knows what you're thinking. So you might have all of these thoughts in your head. This is the spotlight effect. You're thinking all of these thoughts. And if you suffer from the spotlight effect, you'll think that, well, everybody knows that I'm thinking this. Well, no, actually, nobody knows you're thinking that. This is often a problem in relationships as well. Your significant other is doing some type of behavior that maybe you don't like. And you're just stewing in your head thinking to yourself, like, how can they not know that I don't like when they do this? Well, because you're not saying anything, because you're not letting them know that that is a problem. That's also the spotlight effect. So the spotlight effect applies to, I really don't want to make a mistake, or, I feel embarrassed. I have a stain on my shirt. Everybody's looking at me. When really, in actuality, most people aren't looking at you. Most people are so self-consumed with the things that they're doing that they're not paying attention to you at all. Certainly, there are people, loved ones in your family, that think about you maybe more than others, but trust when I say, when you're out in public, and this is well documented, most people are so tunnel focused on what they're doing, they're not looking at you. The same applies to the gym. A lot of people get uncomfortable to go to the gym because they think, I don't know how to use this machine, and everybody's going to be making fun of me, and nobody's looking at you. They're really not. And this example with, if you have an issue, right, within your organization, and you just assume that other people know this, you just assume that other people are seeing this, you're sadly mistaken. Because those people who could make some decisions to change that problem may not see it, because they're not in your shoes. They don't see it from your perspective. So it's incumbent upon you to verbalize that, to let them know, hey, I'm experiencing this issue, and put it in writing and have it be very clear and articulate it. That is also the spotlight effect. And I bring that up because, again, I haven't really seen the spotlight effect applied to that situation, but that can apply to your relationships, that can apply to your organization. Any problem that you are having, or you're thinking it in your head, you actually have to verbalize it. You actually have to tell people about it, because nobody's going to know otherwise. So that's the spotlight effect. And again, this can really hamper your forward progress just in life. If you're always so concerned that everybody's watching you and everybody's looking at everything you're doing, you're kind of going to shy away from things. You're kind of going to step back. And that can really inhibit you from doing the things that you want to do. That's it. That's everything for today's episode, the spotlight effect. Now you're probably wondering, well, Gene, if I'm impacted by the spotlight effect, how do I get over that? You get over it by knowing about it, by knowing that it's a thing. Just like paradigms. If you remember in the very first episode, I talked about paradigms because they are undoubtedly the foundation of self-development. They control everything that you do. But if you don't even know that that's a thing, you're never going to be able to make any forward progress. You're not going to be able to make any meaningful changes. Well, I'm letting you know about the spotlight effect. So if you have you find yourself in these situations where problems are not getting solved that you have in your head, you might be suffering from the spotlight effect. You might be wrongfully assuming that everybody knows what you're thinking, and really they don't. If you're giving a presentation and you stumble over your words, keep going. Most people didn't even notice it, and that's okay. So that's where we're going to leave it for today. This is a very beneficial topic for a lot of you out there. Again, it kind of puts a name to it. All of us have experienced this at one point in time or another, but now you have a name to associate it. It is the spotlight effect. Be aware of it and try not to let it impact your day-to-day activities. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me. Again, if you want to check out some of the offerings that Reed Solutions has to offer, I encourage you to visit reedsolutionsllc.com and stay tuned for more episodes. Thank you.